Good afternoon. It's that time again. Welcome to Unearthing with Yasmin and myself, Lavinia, founder and director of the M Word. We're delighted to see you again. We try to keep these weekly with topics of interest at the time. Yasmin maintains a very good calendar over the year of things that can guide us as to what we might think to talk about, particularly from a mental health and autism perspective. So today felt very rushed because we only kind of remembered that we'd had a bank holiday weekend, and last night it was a case of, oh, it's Wednesday tomorrow, what are we going to talk about? And hopefully many of you have enjoyed the end of an Easter holiday, but also a bank holiday weekend where we have now had a very fortunate situation, depending on how you look at it, of a 4-day week for the last 3 weeks, which is staggering. But invariably, people get together as families or family units and enjoy much eating. So we thought, well, why not talk about cooking and baking, but very much from an autistic perspective. So we've got a number of things that we thought we would talk about today. And obviously, cooking and baking, lots of people like baking and or cooking. But equally, there are lots of people who don't like baking and or cooking. So I'm going to ask Yasmin, because I know the answer to this one. Yasmin, what do you like doing?
I actually find it quite interesting. I'm not sure I'm super keen on baking, but I'm all right at it, so I keep doing it. I wouldn't say I'm Great British Bake Off level. That just seems very stressful, and like I don't want anyone on national TV seeing what comes out of my kitchen because I feel like it does not look good. But people eat it, and I haven't really got many complaints, so I will keep doing it.
Yeah. What do you think you like about doing either or? Is there a particular element that you like about it?
I think it's actually like it because they're so specific. You have to follow a recipe, and I quite like that. Even though I'm often not good at measuring stuff when it comes to baking, I'm quite all right with it. And I like trying different recipes and then creating my own, which is, it takes a good bits of different recipes I've tried and puts them together.
Yeah.
And I like when I can give it to people I care about. For example, I absolutely hate crumble, but I have made, I think last winter, 68 crumbles in 4 weeks.
What?
Don't ask me. You ate
Little
them.
ones. Yeah.
Different flavors and stuff. And I got to experiment with that. And you would always go, "What's in this one?" It's like, well, what did I have in the kitchen that was available? Oh, it's peach and blackberry. Oh, okay.
So there's a real element then that you like of being creative, but also experimenting. So this is really interesting because you've obviously gained a lot of knowledge to be able to then feel confident at experimenting. And because you are very creative, you obviously have found great fun in not just experimenting in a traditional sense. So there was something that you tried on me last week, or was it 2 weeks ago now, where I said to you it was very moist, but what's in it? Because I couldn't fathom what my taste buds were telling me. It didn't make any sense, but then you confirmed what I thought I was tasting, and it then explained why it was so moist and gooey. What was it?
So that was banana and peanut butter brownies.
Right.
Because I thought I like those two things. So, and it always makes it sound like I'm insane, but I did find this recipe online. So somebody out there is just as insane as I am when it comes to mixing things together. For example, I had those kiwis in the fridge and I was like, I wonder if there's such thing as kiwi jam. There is. I found a recipe for it. I'm not sure it's my thing, but I've made it.
Yeah, exactly. So there's clearly a lot of fun in experimenting for you as well as creating, isn't there? And I think a lot of people think of cooking or baking as quite arduous. I used to enjoy, when I was your age, experimenting, and I loved nothing better than experimenting and then having a row of guinea pigs. So I would have a dinner party and they would have to eat what I presented. But I had considerably more time then, and also considerably more interest and motivation. As life has got busier and busier and busier for me, I've lost that interest completely. And even now, I would say I'm not really trusted in the kitchen. Would that be fair to say?
No.
And so I'm very dependent upon my households providing me with food. And if I don't like it, well, tough, basically, like it or lump it, that's what's being offered. And so I tend to be very grateful that somebody has actually had the inclination to want to cook and feed me. But certainly your experiments are rather interesting.
Well, I also think because I grew up a very fussy eater, being able to make variations of dishes allowed me to feel like I was eating like everybody else was. So I came up with a recipe for, like, I wouldn't call it vegetable lasagna because it's probably not, like, there's only one vegetable in it. But I came up with this recipe when I was 10, 11. Yeah. I'm turning 21 this year and we're still eating it and I'm still perfecting it and going, okay, this one
favorite.
And
definite fan favorite in the household. So you have to tell everybody now. They'll want to know what it is.
So I used to make a big tray though and go, we'll keep some for tomorrow, and then we'd get to the end of the night and go, oh, there's none left. Sorry, dogs, you can't have any. It's gone. So I took all the best bits of lasagna that I like. So I like the tomato sauce, I like the cheese, but I don't eat red meat. I'm not really that keen on minced turkey or anything like substitutes, corn. I really can't deal with the textures or the smells of them. So I was like, I really like carrot, so I will fill the in-between layers with carrot, and it works. I think it works,
But with carrots, it's always grated, isn't it?
Yes, it has to be grated.
Always grated. It can't be any other way, can it? Yes. Okay. And lasagna, the way it's traditionally designed is white sauce, but you don't do white sauce. You do.
I do. Well, it's a lasagna sauce by a pasta company, but it's cheese flavored, so it's kind of like cheese sauce for a lot of things. So I use it for my lasagna, I use it for my pasta, do it with gnocchi. I've recently started doing it on a pizza base with some garlic powder to make garlic bread. It works for everything, and because I know it's a safe food, that's the thing, it's a safe food, so I know, okay, this one item can do 50 different dishes, where I feel like I do have a wider palette.
Yeah.
But it's set up of this safe food, and I know that that's okay, and I can eat that, and I can eat it till the cows come home. It's fine.
Yeah, that's quite interesting, isn't it? Because you won't remember this particularly, but a lot of parents who I complete mental health assessments, when we're looking at appetite, we kind of all say the same thing. When our children are toddlers, very young toddlers, and I've got photographic evidence to support me with this. We were on holiday in the Chinese restaurant, and you were trying all sorts of little delicacies that I was struggling to think about eating. Whereas quite swiftly after that, you then became incredibly restrictive about what you would eat. And at the time, it completely blinded me. I had no understanding that you were much more into finger foods. But then I suppose because I was, if I had a preference, it'd be a fork or finger food. I didn't really kind of think any different. It's like, so you're doing the same. You're doing the same. Why would I think that's weird when we're all doing the same? So it is quite interesting how our taste buds and our viewing of food changes, quite early on.
Yeah. Even if you wanted to do a shorter age span, for example, one food I absolutely cannot eat now is cucumbers. I really hate them. I hate the smell of cucumber. I can't deal with it. It makes me feel violently ill. But there was a time in my life when I was 7, 8 years old that when I was at school and having lunch, I would just eat a plate full of cucumber.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with it. And I used to really like the like the rind of the cucumber. So I wasn't so keen on the center of it, but the outside I was a great fan of. Oh no, I can't even think about eating it now because I'm like, oh, that's disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I also think that the older I get, you kind of, when you're growing up, you kind of get shamed into thinking I'm a fussy eater. I'm doing it to be difficult. And I'm not doing it to be difficult. It's either the texture is not right, I have a really bad memory with it where I've reacted really badly to it and I don't want to put myself through that again, because there's a certain type of potatoes from Tesco's I will not touch with a barge pole because when I was, 7, it made me throw up, unfortunately, and I now won't touch it. And so when I've kind of been growing up experimenting with my cooking and my baking, I found ways to kind of not come across as a fussy eater. So my dishes look somewhat complex, but when you break them down, they're really, really simple.
Yeah.
But at least makes me feel like, okay, sometimes I still go to restaurants and I go, oh, this is not a Yasmin friendly menu. I can't eat here. And it's a bit like, that's a bit annoying. Now nobody can go unless they go without me. But in the long run, I've found ways to kind of work around it. And I have a really good example. When I was younger, I hated pasta sauces. So you give me pasta and ketchup, which sounds revolting, but I lived off it for years. And it's only now that I'm older that I realize the reason why I did the ketchup thing is because most pasta sauces you get in the shops have herbs in them, and I don't like the herbs in them. So now I found another alternative that isn't ketchup, which makes me seem less childish to other people, but it is safe because there's no herbs to it and I can add my own spices. So it really is kind of important from an autistic perspective. If you find the safe foods, you can then find recipes that can work with them and you feel like you are having a broader variety of food. You're not so fussy, but you know they're safe. And when you cook them at home, you know exactly what's gone in them.
Yes.
So I don't have to pick through them going, oh, I don't like that. I don't like that. You've made it. You've seen what's gone into it. You know it's all food that you like. And it really helps. That really helps.
So I can see that if you were cooking or baking, with your young children, I can see that would be very appealing to them because they can actually see what's going into it rather than questioning what is it, because they view it with suspicion. And children are very good at viewing it with suspicion, going, I'm not eating that, aren't they?
Yes.
So by and that's how I managed to entice you to from a very, very early age. And we've got really early photographs of you massive mixing bowl with a big spoon, and you practically dwarfed by them because you were so busy and so engaging with it. But because you'd made them, I had a much better chance of getting you to engage with them. And also you found it fun. And for me, it was such a relief because, again, cooking and baking, you can't just start it and then abandon it. Well, you can, and it ends up in the bin. But there is a real carrot, pardon the pun, of being dangled. You're going to start something, you're going to make something, and then you can eat it. There's a real reward at the end of it. And I remember as a little girl, if I ever did any baking, I absolutely adored the last treat. Whilst it was cooking in the oven, I would be allowed a teaspoon, and my brother and I would scrap over finishing, taking out the dregs, obviously, and like that. Somebody has put
I can.
Oh yes, yes we did.
Yeah.
Would you like to start, or shall I?
So currently, farm foods chicken nuggets, best thing I've ever tasted on the earth, and I could eat them for, you know, hours on end. You know, I've tried different shops, and they're the ones that at the moment I'm like, that's the perfect chicken nugget. That is the one I have to have.
So what about if you're cooking or you're baking? What have you cooked or baked that you've gone off?
Ooh.
Oof, yes.
That's the thing. I think because I've been able to tailor most recipes to me, I never really end up hating them. I might go, okay, I'm not going to have that for a while, but I won't ever go, I'm never going to eat it again. You know, other than I've recently learned I don't like cooked banana anymore. It's so when I was eating those brownies, I was like,
yeah,
I didn't hate it. I didn't want to spit it out, but it wasn't pleasurable for me. So I was like, I'm not making those again. You know.
But that's the important bit, isn't it? You do go through phases, like, you know, when you're using certain ingredients, and then you go through a phase where you're like, nah, no thanks. That you sort of bin it, but then you move on to something else. So we go through a phase of the crumbles, and then you get bored with that. But you know, and trust me, we went, what did you say, 68? 68. Who do you think had to eat those 68?
I don't eat them. I don't like
because Yasmin doesn't eat crumbles.
I don't eat cooked fruit, full stop.
No, full stop.
Of them.
Yeah.
You know, even when I was younger, I would just pick off the crumble topping.
But I was also
gone.
No. I was just thinking about how you experiment with different types of milk.
Oh yeah.
That was the thing that I was like, oh yes, this is definitely a case.
So I absolutely detest cow's milk. I kind of always have. I've never been a kid who could sit there and like drink milk. I always have to have it with something. But I can do milkshakes easily. So I tried an almond milk or a cashew milk. It was one of those when it was reduced in Morrison's, thinking maybe that will be better for me. And it was absolutely vile. I would never drink it again. And I thought, okay, clearly I'm just not destined for milk of any sort. I just don't like it. And then somehow I decided I wanted to try soya milk, and now it's pretty much the only thing that's regular in my fridge.
Hang on a minute. What happened to the goat's milk?
Well, the goat's milk, I still can drink it by itself, but soya milk I can drink quite happily.
But you could mix it when you were experimenting.
You mix it with everything.
Yeah. And that was really quite powerful for you, because I remember you thinking, thank goodness I've got something that I can actually drink. And we went through weeks. And then that awful day, I went into Tesco's and saw they'd reduced loads of goat's milk. And I was in God's heaven thinking, fantastico, because it's so expensive. And I bought the lot, all of them but one, in the freezer. And what did you say to me?
Didn't like them anymore. That's the thing. It's just like, I just don't like it anymore. I don't. I'm going to be really difficult. It's just like suddenly, oh, no, I'm not into that anymore. You know. But any milk alternative you can put into anything. So I made us pasta a while ago that had soya milk in it.
Mm-hmm.
I gave something to Dad, and I put soya milk in it, and I didn't tell him. So I can't remember what it was, but whatever he's had a dose of soy milk.
Wow, he quite likes soya milk now.
Well, at first he didn't like it. I was
yeah.
I was sneaking it into food, going, I'm not using, you know. But you can make everything with it. I've made Yorkshire puddings with it. That's the thing. You can find these recipes and tailor them to whatever your fixation is at the time. What I really like about that kind of gives me some control back over my eating, because I know from the outside it's probably thinking she's just, you know, she's making a big deal of it, you know, you're an adult, just eat it, whatever. And it's like, I physically can't, you know, but it does give me some control over, okay, I can do this, you know.
Yeah. So thinking about then when you're actually making things, like touching things. Now, I remember vividly, my brother, we were in the north of, living in the north of Scotland at this point in Caithness. We had stables and a very small sort of like farmyard. And we had 2 roosters and one died. The next thing I know is roosters heading for the pot. The legs were available. And my brother had found that he could move the muscles to make the clawing. And when he realized that I was screaming in sheer terror at these things pecking at my shoulder and my face, he only did it all the more. So I have a real aversion to picking anything like claws or things around chicken things. Now, I have had to really persevere with touching raw meat, raw skin, wings, chicken legs. And so now you're doing exactly what, but trust me, I have had to really persevere. How does that work then when you're thinking about recipes? I mean, do you do complete aversion as you're doing physically, this real aversion of I can't touch these foods? Do you then have this real aversion of, well, I can't cook that because I know I don't want to touch it? Like I know for fish, you will not touch it.
Although
you say to me, you do it.
Yeah, although recently I have started being able to touch salmon, because obviously I'm making that for you, but I still will not touch any other fish, mussel, whatever, not touching it. But I found what helped is, like kitchen tongs.
Yeah.
Where I can move it, I can cook it, but I don't have to touch it.
Right.
So I don't feel the texture of it. And it sometimes it is kind of like using chopsticks. Like, it's a bit hard to try and get hold of whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it allows me to still cook it, without having to touch it. And obviously I don't eat a lot of meat. So we had this issue a while ago where I was saying to you, can you check if this is cooked? Because I don't know anymore. I don't eat it enough to, but I still, I will still cook it even though I won't eat it, because I like being able to cook for other people. Well, I like doing it and I don't like you in my kitchen. So it's a win-win, really. You can touch the things I don't want to touch, but other than that, get out my way.
Wow, it's like Gordon Ramsay's situation, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
So having certain utensils clearly is helpful.
Yeah.
And I was also thinking about going back to the bananas, and you said making milkshakes. Sometimes when bananas are really squidgy and soft, they are great for cakes or they're great for milkshakes, but people don't like touching them because they aren't firm. So again, if you can peel and just dip into the mixer or put in a bowl without touching it, that's helpful. But there are some fruits that obviously don't have a banana skin, so you would have to invariably touch them. So I suppose having a pair of tongs is quite a useful combination, isn't it? But then there are some people who also are hypermobile and might struggle to, do the tongs or to hold a knife and fork to cut, because some meats are quite tough, aren't they, to try and cut? And I get such a sore wrist, so painful. I can't do it for long.
I have recently had to start using scissors to cut certain meats because it hurts my wrist so much. And it probably looks a bit weird if somebody were to come in. I mean, Dad came in the other day while I was cutting some steak with a pair of scissors, and he was looking at me, and I was like, I can't cut them with knives and forks anymore. My wrist just hurt too much. And he was like, oh, okay. And I was like, but that's the thing. I've been able to kind of work around it by finding something that does work for me. You know, I wouldn't do it to human food, obviously. Like, if I was going to eat it or somebody else, that's their problem. It's on their plate. They can deal with cutting it, But I also feel like things like, say, raspberries or strawberries, you can, no offense, lob them quite gently from the tub into whatever you're having to do, so you don't have to touch them. That's great. But with bananas, I'm okay with making like banana muffins for other people with, you know, slightly mushy bananas. But if I was making anything with myself, I can't use the ends because I don't like the ends. I have to peel the, like, you know, the little stringy bits on a banana because I don't like those bits. If it's got brown bits, I have to cut it off. But if it's going to anybody else, I don't mind. But when it's something that I have to, I can't do it.
So that's something that's quite useful to bear in mind, isn't it? Because it depends on who you are doing it for.
Yeah.
And the other thing I used to find really exhausting and so painful was if I was mixing with a wooden spoon. Not everybody in my day, please can I stress this, in my day had a blender or a mixer. So you had to do everything by hand. And that was exhausting. Or, you know, if you were whipping cream to put in a cake once it'd been cooked, you know, you'd have to spend a lot of time, and it was just so exhausting. You know, so whereas now you can have you know, it's very trendy to have mixers and blenders that you can put things together.
Well, I only have a, like, you know, like a sports smoothie blender. So every time I'm making like cakes and brownies, I have to do it with a wooden spoon, which does kind of, it's a bit of an arm workout, you know.
Yeah.
Can't really get around that. But I also find it's very therapeutic.
Right.
Get the rage out, just you know, and you get there eventually. You know, it might take you a little bit longer, but you know, the other whisk that I've kind of seen going around, which if you don't have a Stanley mix, is, you know, the ones with like the little handles so that the two whisks go at the same time.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, so some people, I don't personally have one, but I have used them in the past, and that's like having a Stanley mixer just by hand. So that always helps, and I find that is easier than a wooden spoon because you're not having to put so much pressure on your forearms and stuff. It's you can stay in one position and it does everything for you.
Yeah. I suppose the other thing as well is that there are some children who are very young when they're at nursery, enjoy getting their hands dirty, but equally there are some autistic children who cannot bear anything on their hands to get mucky and sticky. And I really struggle with, say, for example, you're putting flour and water together with, you know, butter to kind of make that a sort of base, as it were, like a pizza base. I could really struggle with that, but it would get worse the more moist it needed to be. So for example, if you were making scones, you know, and you needed to kind of knead it a bit, I really struggled with that because it just got really wet and sticky, and then I was trying to peel it off and I spent more time getting irritated. So for me it wasn't so much a pleasurable thing, whereas making a cake that didn't involve you putting your hands in was much easier for me. But then, of course, if you're trying to beat things, that was tiring. But it seemed much easier for me with regards to the stickiness there, you know.
Yeah. Interesting. When I make, it always says and knead. I always add the water with a spoon till it gets to the level where I can put my hand in, because I'm not going to touch it when it's all like separated. So that's not written in the recipe, but I'm slowly but surely kind of building my Yasmin safe recipe book up. So I always knead it with a spoon until it's gathered enough that I feel like I can touch it. And I seem to be quite okay with doing all the kneading, and it's once it's finished that I'm like, oh, I've got it all over my hands, and then I'm annoyed because it's just like, you know, but I kind of forget about it because obviously I've made slight changes to it, so it is okay for me to be able to do it.
What about smell? Because that's another big one, isn't it?
Yes.
So there are certain things that you might not make because they don't smell pleasant or they smell too sickly. Have you experienced that?
Not so much with things I've made, but I know for a fact if any recipe calls for sesame seed oil, the scent sesame seed oil will make me again feel violently ill. I don't know what it is about it, because I'm fine with sesame seeds, I'm fine with oil. I am not good with sesame seed oil. So when quite a few recipes call for it, I will have to substitute it for an oil that I can deal with, because there is something about that smell that I cannot deal with. It's really unpleasant, and I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah. And obviously there are some smells that are very potent. So some people cannot tolerate fish. And I'm not great with strong smelling fish being cooked, or indeed strong smelling meat. But I suppose a common one, or common ingredients, are things like eggs being cooked in a certain way, or onions, liver, things like that, which is quite difficult, bearing in mind that we have dogs that we cook for, and quite often it's offal, liver, heart, so that's quite difficult. And I suppose that's why I've always cooked for them in a way where, herbs come in to kind of smother that smell so that I can tolerate it. Are there any other smells that you really can't tolerate?
Mayonnaise and scrambled eggs, not fried eggs, not boiled eggs, scrambled eggs and mayonnaise. There's some mayonnaise, I feel like if it touches my skin, my hand like reeks for weeks. I can just smell it. It lingers. So sometimes when you're eating lunch and you're not eating anything like vile or horrible, it's probably just a salad with something in it, and I can't deal with the smell, and I'm like, I'm gonna come back later when you've gone, because I can't deal with that smell. And it's a bit annoying, it's a bit off-putting, but most of the time the smell doesn't linger. But mayonnaise, the smell just seems to hang around for ages. And I'm not sure what it is.
What about then thinking about, is there any noises that really bother you when you're cooking or baking? Because for me, that's another big one.
I can already hear it. I really don't like washing up, because I don't like the sounds of plates clinging together or something, and it's so annoying, because I kind of feel like I'm playing a game of, that wire game?
Yeah.
Don't touch the edges. So I try and place the plate down really, really slowly, really carefully, quite quiet, like, don't startle anything. And then you just hear this scratch, and I'm like, oh no, I did not do that. And because of that, most of the time I'm wearing my headphones. Which I'm very aware is probably very ironic that an autistic person has to wear massive over the head headphones, but it is the only way I can block out the noise. So at the moment I'm debating getting another pair, because when mine's charging I have nothing, and I'm kind of just sat there going, oh, so I use my headphones for everything. Sometimes when I'm cooking, sometimes when I'm doing the washing up, always when I'm hoovering, because those noises can't deal with them. And unfortunately sometimes when the dogs are biting their feet or something, I can't, just rubs me up the wrong way, and it's not a satisfying brain scratch noise. It's really painful. It's like nails on a chalkboard. It's so bad.
So my biggest things is I don't like loud blenders, but also I do really struggle with this, and both you and Dad do it frequently when you're cooking, in fact all the time, is that you will put on the fan to clear the smells, and I just so struggle with it. You can't tolerate it either.
So I don't put it on a lot. I only ever put it on if I accidentally overcook something, or it's really hot, but then I'm normally wearing my headphones. So, but I try not to put it on a lot, because I hate it so much. And with blenders, I don't understand why the Western world haven't. In China, they have blender silencers.
Oh, really?
Put it over the blender and it makes no noise, and it's like, why have we not come up with that? because then I don't have to worry about it being too loud and waking somebody up, or it just being grating. It, and it's like, oh, okay.
That makes so much sense, doesn't it?
Exactly. And I'm sat there going, and we've still not got a version of that, have we? Yeah,
I suppose as well, some people struggle with things like the dishwasher or the microwave or the kettle. And it is intriguing, isn't it, to try and work out how we adapt to what tools we use. So yeah, it's quite interesting. I wanted to kind of talk about, do you think cooking or baking makes a difference if you're a grazer or whether you're a regular eater?
Oh. I don't.
Because I think, I think we're quite often grazers, you and I. And I think when you get bored or, you want to do some cooking or baking, invariably that can dictate whether you're doing baking or whether you're doing cooking. And I know when you kind of want to, or you go through a spate of baking, you're doing lots of experimenting and creating, which is lovely. But also when you found something that you really fancy making, you make a lot of it. So like you were determined to continue with the experimenting with the chocolate brownies, where you surpassed yourself clearly last week.
Which was an interesting combination, I feel.
Yes, it was. It was, most definitely. Do tell.
But it worked. So raspberry flavouring with peanut butter. Fantastic.
Yeah.
But I find, because I know that recipe so well, I can do it really quickly. So the other weekend, F1 weekend, I got up super early so I could watch the F3 and the F2, and I thought the Porsche Cup's next. Not really into it. So I thought I'll make some brownies so that when F1 starts, I've got some nice brownies to eat while I'm watching it. And I actually managed to make them, put them in the oven, and watch the Porsche Cup. And then, I managed to do everything. And it was like, oh, because I knew how to do the recipe so easily, know. But I was sat there during F2 going, oh, I could really do with some brownies, but I don't have any. So I was sat there trying to talk myself out of making them, because I was like, no, that's ridiculous, and I think you came to pick me up, and I think I'd actually eaten them all by the time you'd got there. There was one or two left. I can't remember. I probably would have eaten them all. I was up.
That's an interesting bit, isn't it? Because some people who are autistic. Yeah, do you want to talk about that? Because that is a really interesting part of being autistic sometimes.
What's really annoying about the fact that I have no self-control is I am constantly talking to myself saying, you've had one now, don't need to have another one. And it's only when I'm halfway through my second one, I'm like, oh my God, what happened? It's just suddenly in my hands. So then I kind of did a more drastic thing. I thought, okay, I will put it in the car, lock the car, because I don't like the dark. So I will not go out in the dark to go and get something from the car, because I can't wait till tomorrow to eat it. And what did I do? No, I got my torch and I ran out to the car really quickly going, please don't let me be murdered. Please don't let me be murdered. And I ran back in and I ate it. So then I went even more drastic and I said to you and Dad, okay, I really like this chocolate bar. It's on special offer. It's going out of stock. Take them with you and only bring me one once a week. And I had 2 or 3 left, and Dad said, oh, I brought them for you because it's a bank holiday weekend, so I thought you could treat yourself. And I was like, oh no. And then I ate them all. Just, and the thing is, people go, oh, you just need to get some self-control, and it's like I physically can't. I unless I literally lock it away, throw away the key, I can't stop myself, and it's really annoying.
So what do you think that's about, though? Is it because you know that there's some left? Is it because you worry that somebody else might have some and not you? Is it because you think the whole world's going to fall apart, so you're going to have it before the whole world falls apart? Why is it that we have to just have one more until it's all gone?
I don't know. I really don't know, because I could quite happily wait until tomorrow. It'd be fine. But I don't get to that point. And to be honest, it will sound childish and gross. If I want something and I don't want somebody else to have it, just lick it. Nobody's going to eat it. You know? That would put me off if somebody went, "You're not having that," and then licked a biscuit. I wouldn't eat it. You know? So, you know, and the thing is, I try really hard, because I go, I'm not going to eat it. And most of the time, I don't even want it. I just seem to eat it. And it's like, oh, are you kidding me? So I try really hard to, like, you know, and then I go the other extreme. And I'll go and do my food shop, and I'll say, I'm not going to buy any snacky stuff. I'm not going to buy any treats. I'm not going to do any of that. And then I get home, and I'm sat there lying awake at night going, I could really do with a chocolate biscuit, but I didn't buy any. So then I get angry at myself, and I can't fall asleep because I'm fixating on that certain food, but I can't have that food. So it's just a very vicious cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that just causes just more dilemmas, really, doesn't it? But there is something really strange in the autistic makeup around that, isn't there? And I know that lots of parents have relayed how, their children have been stealing food, or have been saying that they have been buying food on the way home from school via the shop, all the sweets, or the crisps, or the fizzy drinks, but there is definitely something in that where children who are on the autistic spectrum seem to be just, hoovering up food. And I just find that really interesting. But there is the other side of it. And I know you went through a very brief stage of this where we have a new diagnosis called AFRID, and it's about how we talk about avoiding foods or restrictive intake of food. And I think that sometimes that's quite challenging for autistic people, because if they are terrified of being nauseous or vomiting or choking, that could well lead into that diagnosis. So what do you think about that? Because there has been a lot of restrictive foods, hasn't there, from you?
Well, if you use that, because there are certain foods, for example, I've had bad experience with, say, tinned spaghetti. I thought you'd cooked it, you hadn't. I was then sick. So now I overheat things to the point it's burning hot, because I'm so terrified I'm going to be sick if I eat it because it's slightly cold.
Yeah.
But also then you've got the other extreme where it's like, okay, I sometimes try to eat in calorie deficit, because obviously the NHS say, okay, your class is overweight, so you need to lose weight. And so I'll try really hard to stick to it. But it's very hard when I'm suddenly like kind of limiting myself. And it's very hard to kind of start one of those diets when you have a routine. For example, we used to get takeaways every Friday, and sometimes I wasn't in the mood for it, but because it was our routine, I felt like I had to have it.
Yeah.
So then we decided at the start of the year, okay, well, we'll make it the first Friday of every month. And so that became my new routine. Then some people, not names, both said, let's have a takeaway this weekend. So now we've kind of gone to like a screwed thing. Now it's a surprise whether I get a takeaway or not, because it's like we're not sticking to it, okay. So that, kind of helps. But it's very hard when especially when you're a teenager, when you go online and you see people saying, oh, this is the diet you need to do to lose this amount of weight. This is what you need to not eat. This is what you need to avoid. And you're sat there trying to think, well, I like those foods, and I don't have a wide range of foods that I'm safe with anyway. So you kind of have two parts of you. Part of you saying, yes, I need to do this because I need to lose weight, because I need to, I need to look better for, everybody else, because society's kind of pushed that on you. And then you've kind of got, unfortunately, trigger warning, I guess. I've gone through my teenage years going, I actually really wish I could have an eating disorder because then I'd be skinny. But then my autistic part of my brain goes, you can't not eat food. And then I'm eating. And so it's like, my autism has kind of saved me from having an eating disorder, because it's physically impossible for me to seemingly get one, because my autism just goes, oh, a packet of crisps, I'll eat that, So it's kind of a pros and cons list. But because my autism has done that to me, there are other autistic people out there who could actually be very vulnerable to falling for that. So I have to kind of be grateful that my autism hasn't allowed me to fall into that kind of, no matter how at some points I was really wishing, to just turn that part of me off so that I could, not eat all this food, or, I could go days without eating. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. Or fortunately, it depends how you look at it, really.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing with autism is, if you're not autistic, it's very easy to fall into media and society saying autistic people are very vulnerable, they're very easily manipulated. And it's like, give me credit, I haven't fallen for, I'm not stupid. Sometimes things have just been worded in a way that it seems like the best option, so I've naturally done that. But just because I'm autistic doesn't mean I'm slow or I don't understand something. It just means sometimes it doesn't compute correctly and I make the wrong choice. But we all make wrong choices. It's just sometimes maybe mine are more obvious than others.
Yeah. Well, I think young people with autism, and then thinking about, food restriction, I think some of that is around the fact that they are very sensory orientated. So, for example, we've got a client who is so sensitive to smells that can put them off, but also by looking at wrappers of what people have had can also put them off. And we've got other clients who have experienced vomiting or choking. So that has put them off because they have looked at the foods that they think caused the vomiting or the choking or the nausea. And because, of course, it was a collective meal of different ingredients, they don't know which one was the point of causing. And so then they've eliminated those. So say, for example, if you had a cheese and tomato sandwich with crisps, they've eliminated all of that because they can't isolate what's been going on for that. And, I remember when you were 5 or 6 and, you did the most amazing projectile vomits, but thereafter it would make you really nervous about eating certain foods because you'd be trying to remember what you had eaten prior to that. And I mean, I think the last really bad incident that you had when you were a lot younger, it had been a real cocktail of things you'd had that day, and we really were struggling because you just avoided everything that you consumed that day for months on end.
Are we talking Orbans and the Tic Tac combination?
That would be the one. Yeah, I mean, it was horrendous, wasn't it? Where I can't eat any of those because you were just so unsure what it could have been.
And because of that, I started actually getting a phobia of being sick. So for years I was like, I can't be sick. For some weird reason, for years I then was never sick. But I was thinking about it a couple of months ago when I was unfortunately unwell, and I stayed off pasta for like 3 months because, I knew that's what I had thrown up, and I don't want to eat that.
Yeah.
So I now I can eat pasta again. I had some yesterday, but you know, for like 3 months, I was like, I can't have pasta. I'll be sick.
Yeah.
And I know some people have a phobia of being sick. And I think people think, oh, nobody likes being sick. That's always what you hear when you say, I have a phobia of sick. They go, everyone doesn't like being sick. No, like, you know, nobody likes it. We just have to deal with it. It's like, it's not so much feeling sick. It's not so much the being sick. It's the feeling it gives me afterwards. I don't like that. That is the one feeling I don't like. But you have to have it if you're sick, you know.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my phobia of being sick has now meant that I don't like being sick in front of other people. Not that anyone would choose that, to the point that I worry people think I'm rude when I went to hospital and this woman said, do you want to sit next to me? And I was like, no, I will be sick on you, on your child. It's not going to work out. And she thought I was so rude. She stared at me as if I just, like, you know, spat in her face, only for a nurse to then come and say, do you want to come and sit in a private room? And she didn't even close the curtain and I was throwing up. And I then went past the lady and she looked at me so embarrassed. And I was like, yeah, that could have been on you. So just be thankful. I said, no, I'm okay. I'll stand.
So there's something else in that for me as well, in that, you know, there's that real fear of lack of control. And again, we have clients who really desperately worry about that lack of control. And so in order to not have no control or limited control, they just simply won't eat what they think is the food that's stopping them. And that's really quite challenging, you know, for a number of reasons, because we have the sensories that are amplified, but we also have the feeling of what it's like when you're going through those and they're not particularly comfortable, pleasant, but also that horrible feeling of shame or embarrassment, which can be driving why you don't have those foods. I've got one client in particular at the moment who really struggles with eating, but and you alluded to this right at the beginning, where she enjoys cooking and baking for other people and gets a lot of pleasure from that. And we've got a number of autistic clients who really struggle with saying I love you, or I'm sorry, or you know, just being able to articulate how they feel about close members of families. Do you want to talk about that? Because I know that's something that you're really kind of struggle with.
So the whole saying I'm sorry thing, I could give an entire 1 hour lecture on why I don't like that. You know, the main reasons being, when you're a child, you are always told after you've had like a small squabble, apologize, to the point where it's like, well, am I genuinely apologizing, or am I apologizing because that's what's been expected of me? You know, so then I get very confused of, is it genuine? What if I'm not sorry? Why am I being told to say sorry? You know, it's just a whole rabbit hole of I didn't want to say it, you know. So it has to kind of like be really severe for me to say that. I have other signs that show I'm sorry, but I love you, I really struggle with, and the older I'm getting, the more I seem to struggle with it, because of the emotions that are associated with saying that. And I always feel like maybe I'm not feeling the right emotions to say that. So it makes me uncomfortable and I hate it. Especially as neurotypical people, isn't it? Most people say, when I say I love you, it's direct eye contact when they do it, and I do not want the direct eye contact. I don't want you looking at me while you're saying that. Just no. So instead I bake for people and I go, have some food, you know. And people, I feel really bad because it probably comes across like I'm a feeder, somebody who likes seeing somebody put on weight or something because I'm feeding them so much. And it's like, it's not. It's just the one way that I can show you, like, you know, I appreciate you, so I've made you something, you know. And then Dad the other week said, I'm on a diet, I can't do any of your cooking. And I'm like, oh Christ, what do I say? What do I do instead? What do I, you know? So I'm still a bit lost of what I should pick up instead. But you know, that's another bridge when we come to it.
Yeah. That's quite interesting though as well, isn't it? Because, some of our autistic children really, really struggle, like you say, of being able to show love and affection because they purely cannot tolerate the sensories of being touched or, being given that level of attention. Particularly PDA might struggle with that. So how do we do it? And I suppose food is a very easy way in some respects. We certainly, from a neurotypical perspective, see eating collectively as a very pleasurable experience, whereas there are some individuals on the autistic spectrum who do not in any way, shape or form see eating together as a pleasurable experience, but cooking or baking is acceptable, which is quite interesting, isn't it? Because it's that willingness to kind of get together to kind of do it all, but then leave me alone so that I can eat in peace, where I'm not having to tolerate listening to other people eating, or indeed, cutlery scratching on plates, or just, the smells that are around, or just people talking that are impacting on my trying to focus and concentrate on eating. I mean, it's huge, isn't it? But cooking and baking itself might make it a little bit easier.
Cooking and baking for other people, it's a rather intimate act, so to speak, because I've put a lot of effort into it.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes me vulnerable, because if somebody were to go, that was disgusting, never cook for me again, I'd be really, really upset,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
While it might seem like a really simple act of, I've just made you some brownies, if you were to say to me, didn't like those, don't make those again, I'll be like, oh, what? I've made an effort and you've kind of just gone disgusting, horrible, so I'm not really sure how to recover from that. So it's like,
So again, that's quite interesting, isn't it? Because, sometimes just the idea of giving food is an easier way of saying, I've done this for you. And children sometimes find it much easier to give you a gift, don't they? Much easier to kind of say, this is what, this is how I feel about you, and giving you a gift. And the pride, certainly when you were very young, you loved it, no matter what you gave me, as long as I drank it and ate it, I'd be all right. You'd be so pleased, and obviously there was some interesting, shall we say, experiments coming from your hands, but the experimenting has certainly paid off dividends, because now you're a very accomplished cook and baker. And for somebody like me who no longer has the pleasure, the time, the inclination, it's much easier to be happy to kind of help with, yes, this is beautiful food, this is yummy food, or love the baking, this is interesting. And for sure, one of the most recent things that I absolutely adored your experiments was homemade pizza with cheese in the rolled up crust. So I really, really liked that, because I thought, well, that and you experimented with different types of pastries as well. So that was really interesting.
Yeah.
Covered a huge amount of subjects today, as ever. To sum it all up, what would you say is probably the most important things for you about baking and cooking?
The fact that I can take my own diet, because that gives you so much freedom, so much, I might not be able to eat everything from every culture in the world or different things, but at least I can make a version of it so I still feel like I'm being included. And that kind of really opens it up to you, because what I might see as my safety food, somebody else might not see as theirs, but they could come up with another recipe that they love, and it feels like you're not so restricted in what you can eat. That's the thing. Even if they don't work out, just try different recipes and tailor them to you, because if you like them, you'll do what I do and have them for years in the back of your mind that you know that's a safe food, and you continue tailoring them as you grow up, you know, but you've got that safety net. You've got that safety, and you don't feel like, oh, I'm only a chicken nuggets and chips kind of person. You've kind of got like, okay, that's the safety food I've got, but guess what? I've got this, this, and this, and they're more complex, you know?
Yes, and I think for me, it's the you know, it's not necessarily sitting down and eating together. It's the wonderful creativity that autistic people generally like doing. That was the thing that struck me when I was very much your age in holding these dinner parties, but also now where food is definitely a game changer, and it allows people to relax a bit more, and it's so much more fun when you're experimenting as well. And I really enjoy that aspect of being able to do it. So thank you. Could relate to so much of this. Oh, I'm glad. I'm so glad. Okay, well, Yasmin, as ever, thank you so much for your time today, and just kind of giving that interesting perspectives on so many things around cooking and baking from a mental health and autistic perspective. And we could have easily talked about so much more, you know, whether food makes you happy. We could maybe do that another time. In the meantime, we look forward to seeing you next week, 12:15 on Wednesday. And in the meantime, we wish you a lovely rest of your week. Take care for now. Goodbye.